Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to the CATA Secondary School Podcast. I'm your host, CJ Rosenbro, and in today's episode, we are discussing work-life balance and providing CEUs for it, which is always awesome. We're excited to have Ashley and Katie join us to share their insights and experiences. I think collectively through all of us, through all the years we've done this, we've come up with a lot of strategies to improve our work-life balance, but we're still learning. So I'm really interested to have this conversation and see what their thoughts are, as well as share some of the things that I've done and cover the position statement from NATA on work-life balance. And also another resource that we're utilizing is if any of you were at the RMATA, one, it was great to see you all there. But two, there was a talk by Dr. Lauren Walsh on burnout, and she touched on work-life balance. And those are inherently tied together. So we are going to touch on burnout as well as work-life balance, because to avoid burnout, you have to have good work-life balance. And if you don't have good work-life balance, you're going to lead to burnout. So we will discuss both of them. So let's dive right in. First thing we're going to discuss is individually in the workplace, what can you do to improve your work-life balance? And then we're going to talk about in the workplace, what can supervisors do to increase theirs and their employees' work-life balance, because sometimes your employees need a little bit of help getting there, and you have to set the environment up for them to be successful in that regard. And then we're going to talk about what you can do at home outside of the workplace individually to improve your work-life balance. So first thing I want to jump into, this is from the NATA position statement. I feel like this is probably the most common and the most difficult thing to do. It's the most commonly complained about. So like every athletic trainer knows this is an issue, and then they still can't find the solution. And it's setting boundaries in the workplace. I think this kind of stems from our profession is newer still. And we just talked about this in the salary advocacy episode, and we're struggling to still demonstrate our worth. And we want to be team players. We want to interact and with coaches, with staff, and we want everyone to be part of or see what we can do and understand how we can be part of the team. And that inherently leads to us doing way too much, having no boundaries. So Katie, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. I've found that everyone has struggled with setting boundaries. Everyone knows they struggle with it, and a lot of people just can't find that right solution. So curious to hear your thoughts on kind of some strategies that you've implemented over the past years.
Yeah, I think boundaries is an interesting topic. I even would go as far as to say, like, the new generation of workers, not just athletic trainers, but the general workforce, uses this word boundaries with kind of a negative connotation to it of I'm setting boundaries, don't contact me. And that's not really what this is, but it is a learning tool of how to not burn yourself out. And I will tell you, I was the athletic trainer that would burn myself to the ground to make sure people knew my value. And that's not it's not good for you, but there's also better ways of doing it. So unless it's an emergency, tell your coaches, hey, I'm not available at this time or this time, right? Like, I will answer your texts or calls from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., but not after, please. And like, use your devices to your advantage. Like, I know some people don't like putting their phones on do not disturb. It exists for a reason, you guys. Use it. And emergencies happen. Know that I think we say this in every episode, probably every episode, if not at least every other episode. Communication is really the key here. Set your boundaries right away with people, but know that, like, when you're setting those boundaries, there's a little bit of a line with it, and they're not strict and firm unless there's something that you personally like just can't do. Like, I don't let student athletes have my cell phone number, and I tell everyone that. And if someone gives out my cell phone number, I go straight to that person and say, do not ever do this again. It's inappropriate. I don't want students having my cell phone number. They can contact me in 17 other ways, not by my cell phone, not by text message. Don't want that. That is a firm boundary for me, and it's a hard stop. If they do it, I go and I tell them immediately, you did this wrong, don't do it again. And you go through that. The same thing applies to everything else. I'm a good athletic trainer because I do all of my work at work, and then I come home and I leave it at work. But that takes a few years of getting used to. If you have a plan going into it up front, you're much better off communicating that, and you'll not burn out as quickly.
I want to touch base before we throw it your way, Ashley, on the phone. When I first started, I gave out my cell phone to all the coaches, and inevitably they gave it to the athletes somehow. And then the parents got it. And I would just get like calls on a Saturday when I didn't have anything, watching football, not in a position where I should be working or making any medical advice and decision making. And it got to a point where my phone, when it would ring, I would get like that anxiety of, is this a parent or a coach calling? And for me, I really struggled with that because I could not separate. Like my phone's supposed to be like friends, family, emergency, but it started becoming a work like pager almost. Every time it went off, okay, am I getting an email from work? Do I need to do something? Is something happening? So having that separation from your cell phone, I think, is a really good point. Ashley, what are some experiences you've had with improving work-life balance over the years?
Yeah, I think those are all really important. And I think even I need to jump on the don't give out people my cell phone number bandwagon. And with my switch in roles here, I think I can actually start to do that. So I'm pretty excited. But, one of the biggest other things I always think about now that Katie taught me was that when you leave work, you're wearing your work clothes and you need to take them off as soon as you get home. Change into something else, change into something more comfortable, change into something nice that you're going to go out and have a good time in. Whatever it is, take your work branded clothing off, and it helps you mentally just kind of like shut a door.
Mhm.
I will say I started doing that, and
Me too. Yeah.
it's been a good
It was
change.
one of the greatest. It was just such a small comment, and I think it was part of a bigger discussion that I was listening to, but I took it to heart. And yeah, same with you guys. That's why I share it with everyone. You walk in the door, you don't wear your school clothes or your work branded clothes in your off time. It's off time. Like, everyone knows what high school I work at and where I work and what I do. I don't need to be that person in my private life. In my private life, I'm Katie and I go run around hiking in my non-branded gear. I think we talked about this before, but just for the record, like, I now, because I can, spend a little more money on my own personal clothes, because the school clothes, they're always nice. They buy good quality clothing, and then you end up wearing it because you're like, well, it's better than anything I buy for myself. No, I take the time and I'll save for it. But when I purchase something for myself, I purchase something that I want to wear, so that I don't want to wear my school gear because it's higher quality. So buying yourself higher quality clothes when you can is also worth it in that respect.
And don't blur the lines. Like we went to the outlets a couple months ago, and I got a nice like Under Armour jacket. And it's like a light jacket, not super heavy, not super too light. So I was like, oh, this is nice. And then I wanted to wear it to work one day. I was like, no, you know what? This needs to say a personal jacket. Like, I don't want work to be tied onto this and associated with it. I'm amazed at how much of a difference that made, Katie. I think you told us probably 2 years ago when we last talked about this. And it's a huge difference. Like, I won't even put a work shirt on, even if I'm going into work like 2.5 hours from now. I usually would like put it on because I know I'm going, but now I'm like, no, I'm keeping it off until I go. And then as soon as I get home, I change and I put on like my comfortable personal life clothes.
It's also an announcement I started making to like the kids and the coaches. Like, they'll say something, they're like, "Oh, look at you in that whatever team shirt it is." And I'm like, "Oh yeah." And then like one of the days, one of the boys at football, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I'm sweaty." And I'm like, "I'm sorry, you think that this shirt cares? Like, this shirt is, I'm not wearing it. I go home, it goes in the wash." I believe this went back to my education program too, just for the record. Like, you weren't allowed to wear your athletic training education program clothing outside of your rotational hours, because it reflects poorly on the program if you're out at the bar drinking in your educational program clothing, right? Like that. I assume a lot of programs have that rule, but it also then you don't have like the recognition of someone sees you and they're like, where do I know that person from? They can keep walking because they can't place you if you're not wearing your school or work gear.
Yeah. And then the other thing I just kind of wanted to add on to the end of my spot here is you need to treat your personal, family, and self-care time as non-negotiable responsibilities that hold equal weight to your work tasks. Okay? It's not just your off time. This is a non-negotiable part of your life that you need to prioritize.
So I really struggled with that. My brain does not like to let me go when I have something that I need to get done, which is always a struggle. So I would be with family and I'd get an email or I'd have a task or I'd think of something like, oh, I need to do that. And I would be like, I need to do it. Just let me get it done real fast. And my family would be like, hey, we're out to dinner right now. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, just 1 second. I just need to get this. So it's not in my brain anymore. Not healthy, not good. The strategy for those of you who have that same issue of I just want to get it done so it's not on my brain anymore. I have I think it's like Samsung Tasks, but it's on my home screen and I have an athletic tab on it. And I just put in athletics, do this. And then I put a due date and then I forget about it. And then when it needs to be done, it pops up on my thing. I'm like, okay, I need to do that today. So I think it's totally fair to put it on a reminder, but don't do it. Because when you're with your personal time, I agree with Ashley, like you have to be on your personal time and it's hard. Like you're going to have to work at it. It's not going to be something where you just turn it off and like, all right, I'm on personal time. It's all good. You're going to have to start training your brain and start like actively avoiding work when you're on your own time.
Well, and plan your day accordingly. I think that's a big piece, CJ, because I'm that person too. Like if I have 40 hours worth of work to get done, it usually doesn't end up being that. But when I have a list a mile long of things that I know needs to get done, and I'm like, oh, I got so much to do this week. I'm just going to take it home. I'm going to do it from my couch instead of in the office. Nope. My home is my personal time. So I make a list and I just like every day, I'm like, how much can I get through today? And if it's sitting for 3 hours in the office, just like knocking out tasks, that's great. And I get to it when I can get to it. But if I can't get to that day, it can wait till tomorrow. And if it can't, then put it at the top of your list. Move it to the top of your list. Or then you contact your manager or your supervisor and say, hey, I have all this stuff to get done. Is there someone who can help me? But if you have the ability to plan out ahead of time, like at the beginning of the season, we're going into it right now. We know we have registrations coming in. We know we have to look at medical alerts. We have EAPs to review. We have meetings with coaches. We have to review those EAPs and get them uploaded. And the EAPs are due to CHASA by August 3rd, I think. I don't know, you guys double check it. We're probably not even getting this to you on time. But like at the time that we're recording this, we know that that's a task that needs to be done. Put it on your list. Say, can I get this done today? If not, can the athletic secretary help me with this? Can someone else help me with this? Go through it, double check, do those tasks and do them ahead of time. Like next week is an off week for football. I don't know how everyone else is handling it, but next week in my off week for football, everything is going to be templated ahead of time. Can I get this email templated out to send to coaches the next week because I know they need the information and they're depending on me to get it to them, but I can't get it to them until it comes in through athlete registration. And we all know running by someone else's timelines is a boundary you can't set, and it's very frustrating, right? And so that's the other side, is make friends with the people around you. I think I've said that 3 billion times this week, but your athletic secretary knows the schedule changes are happening. Just keep reminding her, hey, when schedule changes happen, can you let me know? Is there a notification system I can get on? Hey, football coach, if you're going to change practice time to an hour earlier because the weather is so hot this week, you have to notify me. I can't help you if I'm not here. And if you just change practice and don't let me know, I'm not going to be here. Also, don't just show up because you found out. Make them notify you. Make that a boundary. Don't just, and then they'll learn real fast if they want you there. They will, but make them notify you, or send a message that's like, hey, I heard practice changed. Is that true? Because I didn't get any communication. And they will do a better job. You can be nice about it. You don't have to be a brat. Like, be nice and just work on that communication constantly. The more people who know you need to be notified, the better, because someone's going to let you know.
I'll piggyback on make sure that give your coaches a heads up. Like at your beginning of the season meeting, you have to tell me about schedule changes. And if you don't, I am not coming. If I hear it through the grapevine through students, we all know that is not reliable information. I am not going to trust it. And I'm still waiting for you to tell me. So if you want me there, you got to tell me. Now, if you do something like cancel a game on a Saturday morning and don't tell me, and I show up, we're going to have a much bigger problem. So Yeah.
We'll touch on that in a little bit. So Dr. Walsh's talk at RMATA included internal and external locus of control. And that's a big piece of it, is that's something you cannot control. And if you aren't told about something that's happening, or something is happening that's canceled and then you're not told it's canceled, that's something that's out of your control, and that really increases burnout. So that's it could be, it happens once or twice in a season and it's not as consistent, but it has a huge weight to it when it leads to burnout. So I think it's a really, really good point. And I think it kind of dovetails on the next point of, you need to clearly define what constitutes an injury. Because if the schedule is going to be all over and they're going to be calling you, maybe they have a Saturday morning practice or they forget to tell you about a practice. An rolled ankle is not an emergency. This is not something that we need to like call immediately, take care of immediately. It's going to be okay. So if you are, let's say you've worked your 40, they have a practice on Saturday, they're on their own, coaches are trained, they're adults, everything will be fine. If there's an injury, if it's an emergency, you don't need to be called, because if it's an emergency, they're calling 911. They can shoot you a text, they can shoot you an email, hey, this happened. If it is an emergency and they're calling you, you should be saying, why the heck are you calling me? Call 911. If it's not an emergency that doesn't need 911, they will live until they see you on Monday. Everything will be fine. You have those protocols in place. You have probably stuff available to say, hey, they can get started working on this. The coaches know, hey, you can get started working on like range of motion stuff. You can see Katie or Ashley on Monday. If it's an emergency, they don't need to be calling you, because they need to be calling 911 and then just shooting you an email.
And dictate who can call you in that scenario, right? How often have you had a student who is a helper call full panic? This is happening. That person, I say, hang up and have an adult call me back. There are some things where I've worked with coaches through, and so there are times where they are allowed to call me. I'll say, hey, I'm on call, but I'm not coming in for this. Mm-hmm. Call me and we'll talk through it step by step. I've also had coaches who are just like bad at communicating with parents, which is like here nor there, like they have to, so you should be able to, but they like want to get the wording right. Can you just tell me what to say when I call a parent? Sure. But that's, again, it's one of those times where if I don't answer, I don't answer. Hard stop. They know you're gone. Do not text me about work.
It's a give and take. So, we're sitting here saying set boundaries, don't do this, don't do this. There are times when, like Katie said, they'll call you and be like, hey, I need some guidance. And you're like, okay, this is going to make my life easier. If I help them, I'm okay with this. That's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. I'm going to take my Saturday afternoon where I'm not doing anything. I'm going to help them through this. Now, if that becomes a consistent issue, now we're having a different conversation of, hey, like you're calling me every Saturday with he stubbed his toe, not stuff you need to call me about. How do we manage this? But the one-off of helping out, giving them guidance, hey, we're not sure if this is a 911 call or if it's not, and I'm happy to help you guide you through that. But again, if that's happening every other week, we need to sit down and have a conversation about what 911 calls are. So,
and I think you can handle that in your beginning of the season communication. Yes. If you're not meeting with your coaches, even if it's just like a 10-minute meeting beforehand, like have a meeting with your coaches at the beginning of the season and say that. Don't catch them at the beginning of practice when their mind is on a million other things to have this conversation. Schedule a time, sit down with them, say these things to them so they understand it. And then when they call again, you can remind them, hey, remember, we set this out at the beginning of the season. Can we please stick to that? The preemptive communication goes a long way and as far as setting boundaries with this. And again, I say that from experience and lack of setting my own boundaries.
Couple other things I want to touch on real fast before we go to our next section. One, read the position statement. Again, there's a lot of really good nuggets in here. I want to call out the table on page, it's 800, but it's the work-life balance concepts. And I think it's really interesting to see the model, the definition, and the example. And that can be super helpful. So I'm not going to get into a ton of detail in that, but wanted to point that out. But last thing I wanted to talk about was you're going to have issues. And as you're navigating these, you might find things that you're like, this is just not how I thought it was going to go, and it's just not working. So use that self-reflection and say, okay, here's my role. Here's what I'm responsible for. Is this realistic? Are there any changes I can make here to improve my situation? Can I delegate responsibilities? Like, do I get there an hour early to set up water and set up the fields? Is that something I can delegate to the team managers? I do that all the time at my school. I tell the coaches, hey, you're going to be responsible for your water because I'm pretty sure you guys want me treating and getting your athletes ready and back to sport rather than filling up water for 14 teams. Because if I do that, I'm not going to be doing any athletic training stuff. And I think it goes back to the secondary school athletic training committees mention of coverage versus care and how we should prioritize athletic training care over coverage. So if you're doing more of that stuff that's not really prioritizing your athletic training care daily responsibilities, then that's stuff that maybe we can move on and delegate somewhere else. And that helps improve your work-life balance so that there's less on your mind and less you have to do. And you're really focusing more on your athletic training stuff. And that can make your job more fun because it's less like mind-numbing tasks and more I'm a skilled professional and not just somebody holding a hose into a cooler filling up water with ice, because I don't feel important when I'm doing that. I don't know about you guys, but it doesn't get me out of bed and up and going to work. So look at your role, see where you can make improvements. It's not just I'm setting a boundary here and here. You got to always be evaluating what you're doing and what you can improve. So any final thoughts on in the workplace? I'm sure we'll kind of wrap around and talk about it a little bit more as we go through, but any big thoughts before we move on to kind of from the supervisor angle? Cool. All right. So diving in, this is more looking at from practices for the supervisor or administrator, both for themselves and for their employees. Again, it's taken from the position statement. So a lot of it's going to kind of be the same, but obviously for supervisors, it's a little bit harder. And Katie, you were a supervisor, so you can kind of speak to this a little bit more. It's a little bit harder to disengage from your role as an athletic trainer because you have people who, you might have the day off or a light day and then somebody calls in sick and you're scrambling to try and find coverage and try and figure out, okay, what do we need to do here? So it's difficult to plan time off, especially if you're salary non-exempt, because your schedule's all over the place. So curious to hear how you navigated like your personal time and how you kind of protected that as a supervisor, I guess.
I was really bad at it.
Okay, then we shouldn't ask you.
I learned a lot. Here's what I know. I'm like full transparent honesty here. I went to a point where suddenly I like realized I was not doing any like of the stuff I enjoyed anymore, which is like a very big sign of burnout, right? Where I was like, oh, I haven't worked out in like 3 weeks. What am I doing with my life? And then like working out became a chore and I was like, okay, we've got to reel back. But then I was like continuously saying to other people where I was like, no, you need to take your personal time. But then taking their personal time made me have to work more because I couldn't fill the position. And I was like, all the puzzle pieces are not fitting together correctly. So I think it's really just having a team atmosphere from the beginning and knowing how to set that boundary for yourself too. Like when I'm done, I'm done. And when I tell, like, I can give you advice all day. If you're not going to take my advice, then I can't do anything else. Like I can tell you from experience, this is the better way to do it. But then also you come to a point where you go, okay, look at your job description. Look at the tasks you're doing. Do they all fall under your job description? Or can you go to someone and say, I need help? And I think there's a big move. We're talking about it, I think at every meeting I've been to in the last year, it's how many athletic trainers are appropriate to have at your school based on the amount of athletes you have, right? And it's looking at that and saying, do I need help? Do I need an extra set of hands? Is there a way to get me an extra set of hands to help with all the coverage I'm trying to do? I'm a big proponent of telling people your PTO is yours. You earned it, you accrue it, the company gives it to you for a reason. Given enough notice, you should be able to take PTO whenever you need to take PTO. So for me, I don't think 5 people should all need the same weekend off. That's like when it comes down to it, you guys, it is first come, first serve. If you know a year in advance that your best friend is getting married, put that on the calendar and say, nope, I'm out, non-negotiable. But then it's on the calendar, and your supervisor should be able to respect that, because then if someone else comes in and says, hey, I need to do this, it's like, well, we already have 3 people out that weekend, and this is a last minute thing that you decided. Here's the thing. That person's probably calling in sick that day anyway. Just like, nobody's obtuse to that being the idea, right? Like, we know it's going to happen. If you plan ahead, and if you give your supervisors the ability to plan ahead, they're going to be more lenient and more willing to work with you on that. To me, that's a work-life balance thing that a supervisor should be able to help manage without it affecting the employee so negatively, right? Like, most, like, family emergencies happen. We can't prevent those. Like, what you should have staff to help each other. And I think athletic training is moving in that direction pretty quickly now. Like, most bigger companies, at least it seems in Colorado, are starting to staff, PRNs, or staff extra people who can float around to help as necessary. You're a human. You are a human. You are a human. Life happens. Your coaches the admin will understand that. And again, this is a communication thing. I let your people be humans, but it's just communication. Hey, I know we have this really big, huge football game coming up. I contacted the other team's athletic training staff. I let them know, hey, I had this come up. This is all the information I could provide. I'm big on provide all that information up front. Like, I'll tell you, I have 20 kids that need to get taped. These are all their things that need to get taped. That's how you can help ahead of time, I guess. It's hard, but I think supporting your people as humans is the best way to do it.
Yeah, I think it's so important to have clearly outlined policies and clearly outlined coverage responsibilities, because then as an employee, I know what's expected of me. And I think we'll get into it a little bit later too, but giving your employees autonomy to say, okay, like, I need to micro adjust here or here. And I know here are our expectations and policies, and I know I can work within these to improve my life. And I think that goes a long way in, at my old company, we had a policy of if the school didn't tell us about a change within 24 hours, they had to pay we had an extra event, like overtime. So they'd have to pay extra to get covered because they didn't tell us in an adequate amount of time. Thought that was a great policy to help us, because there'd be games that got rescheduled that were from Thursday. They get rescheduled Friday onto Saturday, and then they call me Friday night and like, oh, by the way, we have a game tomorrow morning. And I'm like, well, I can either work it and get paid overtime, or I can say no, and that's totally okay, because that was written in our contract. And I think that helped I felt very, very, very supported by that, and I thought it was a really cool policy. Katie?
I also think it's important to recognize what's happening with your teammates and your supervisors and or subordinates. I'm not sure which way to go with that, but if you're recognizing signs of burnout, it goes a long way to be like, hey, you seem to have a lot on your plate. What can we help manage for you? And recognize when those signs are showing up and be like, so the importance of this is down here, and you're making it seem like it's way up here. Let's talk through what we can do to help manage that expectation, because sometimes it does just get to be a lot. You're like, I haven't had a 2-day weekend in 6 weeks. I need an extra day off this week. I can't continue burning the what is it? Burning the thing at both ends?
It's a candle.
Thank you. I was like, it was a word. But recognizing that within your teammates, and how can I help you? Hey, I noticed in our situation, I noticed you have a game at the stadium. I'm already here. Can I just pop down and cover that game for you? Okay, cool. That's great. Hey, you seem like, I noticed you have a lot going on in your personal life. Do you need an extra day? Can I help you in some way? If you have the availability to do that, right? I think it goes a long way if your supervisor can jump in and help out. Hopefully your supervisor is also a trained athletic trainer and or in healthcare. That's a model that I would love for us all to follow. I recognize that not everybody follows the healthcare model yet. So, but when someone else can jump in and help with coverage, it goes a long way, and I think communicating that ahead of time is great too. So just recognizing signs and symptoms of burnout within your team is a healthy thing to recognize.
Yeah, and get to know your team. Each person's
Yeah.
gonna be different. What burns me out might not burn somebody else out, but what burns them out might not burn me out. And I think rigidity is almost it almost encourages burnout, right? Like if you have no flexibility to work and say, hey, can I give you an extra day off? Hey, can you, like, here, I'll help you. Or, hey, like, we'll get this covered. You take a little bit of extra time off for yourself. That goes a long way. And I think it's important for supervisors, administrators, and says this in the position statement too. So I'm not just coming up with this off the top of my head, but um, supervisors should be open to suggestions to improve work-life balance. And yes, you are doing a job and you have responsibilities. That being said, there's room to maneuver there. And I think it's very important for supervisors to listen and ask for feedback from their employees. No, you might not always be able to change it, but you can start thinking about it. You can start having those conversations. And if the answer is, hey, look, I understand you're frustrated that we have Friday night football games. This is the high school setting. We're going to have Friday night football games. That's kind of just what it is. But what else can we do to help offset that? Because I understand it's making you burn out. So what's something else maybe we can target to decrease some burnout and improve your work-life balance to offset that a little bit? So work within that. I think that's super fair or super important to be flexible within your policies and your requirements. Katie.
I also think making everyone aware of what's expected of the athletic trainer too, specifically for supervisors to and your athletic trainer yourself, if you're individually employed or employed at the school, like make sure people are aware that your documentation time exists. Make sure they're aware, like documentation doesn't happen in 2 minutes, although we're getting closer to it. See documentation episodes and templates. But that doesn't take 2 minutes. When I call a parent about a concussion, that's a 20-minute phone call. Those things aren't just, you can't just, oh, well, we had a kid get injured at the end of the day, going home at 7. Nope, now I have to wait and I have to talk to the parent and I have to document that injury. And now my 4-hour day became a 6-hour day. And now on Saturday, when I'm supposed to work 12 hours, I only have 10 hours to give. Can somebody help me out?
So want to touch on what you said about communication. I think it's super important communicating with coaches from supervisor to employee. I'm kind of torn on this one. I think if you do it right, it helps. If you don't do it right, it's going to increase burnout and decrease work-life balance. And I've been on both ends of it. Holding regular meetings is awesome for the most part. I know colleagues who have held regular meetings with their AD. That kind of keeps them at the front of their mind. And I think Ashley's mentioned that before. And it's been great. She goes, hey, we meet every Monday and I'm on my AD's mind. So I'm always present. So he's always kind of like, oh yeah, I need to add Ashley to this. And that's just helpful. Having regular meetings with your staff, a great way to connect, great way to collaborate. What's not great is if you're having those meetings and there's no new information and nothing's changed, and now you just took an hour or an hour and a half out of everyone's lives that they spent not on productive things. So have meetings, but have them be productive and relevant. If it can be an email, no need to have the group get together. I think, in my opinion, the days of we need everyone to be together for team camaraderie, I think that actually is a net negative for work-life balance. Yes, I agree. We should all get together. We should work together. I love seeing my colleagues. But in my experience, it creates more burnout if we're getting together, no new information is provided. It could have been an email and then we all leave. I'm kind of like, well, what was the point of this? So maybe that's when you have like a quarterly meeting rather than a monthly. If you're having weekly meetings of those, probably don't need to be having weekly meetings where everyone gets together. Those can be emails. So curious to hear your thoughts, Ashley, because I'm very much like, I love it and I love seeing everyone, but I also, if it's done not the right way, I found that it does increase that burnout. What are your thoughts?
I 100% agree. And when you started saying that, I was still thinking like meeting with your AD every week, and I still suggest you do that in person.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
one's
and
one's
those
different.
for me, those are like 5-minute check-ins. These are the games this week. Yep, everything great. Yep, okay, see you later. Like super quick check-ins. But yeah, the full workplace meetings that you are not learning anything new at and they are not productive are just infuriating. And the when the only benefit is I get to see the people I don't get to see ever, like, and I get to see them in person for a couple minutes, super awesome, but that's about it.
I will say another alternative is if you want to have like that employee engagement, maybe don't have a meeting that month, but have like a little social.
Yeah, an
Where people can
optional,
come if they want, don't have to if they don't want. Optional, yeah. Couple other things that I wanted to touch on, because we kind of touched on it a little bit, but I want to dive a little bit deeper into it. I think if you're lucky enough to be in a district or a county in the secondary school setting where you have colleagues where you can shift around and help, encourage that modified job sharing. I think that's huge. Like, we want to help each other. If I have a concert I want to go to this night and I'm working and Ashley doesn't have anything and she's like, hey, yeah, I can cover that night, understanding, hey, CJ will probably cover me another night where I want to go do something. That's totally fair as long as we're doing within our job responsibilities. I think that really helps with that work-life balance because, again, it gives us, we're going to hear this a lot today, that internal locus of control where we can make micro changes in our schedule. Everything's getting covered. Job description's still great. Hours are met. Everything's getting covered, but we're able to work within it to have that work-life balance. If something comes up and Katie's car breaks down, she's like, hey, I need to get this fixed, yada, yada. Okay, cool. We'll help cover you for today. And you have control over that rather than, okay, well, you need to take PTO or you need to just not get your car fixed today and figure out taking Uber to work. Those aren't helpful. And that just increases burnout and decreases your work-life balance because you get more stressed about it. So encouraging that modified job sharing. And like Katie said, hopefully we're getting more to that. Every school has multiple athletic trainers. I think we are seeing that trend increase. However, there are schools that have 0 or 1. So that makes it a little more difficult. But if you have the ability to do that job sharing, I think it's super important and helps a ton.
Yeah, what internal loci? What? Give me that phrase again, CJ.
Internal locus of control.
Okay,
It's things within your control that like right. External. Yeah.
I think that. So my thought process on this was that the loci, I believe, is about who you're thinking about in that, right? And like, because internal is you on yourself. The problem is, be aware if you are having something come up every week and people are covering for you and you're not jumping in to help out other people, this is a teamwork environment. And you do have to have some awareness of that external loci because you are now an external loci for everyone else when you're asking that. And I think sometimes we lose, especially when we're stressed, like when you're the one who's stressed, you also lose that external piece where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm putting all of this onto someone else because of what I need. And so remember that you are part of a team if you're a part of a team, right? If you're creating external problems, then you're adding stress and you're decreasing other people's work-life balance.
Don't be one of those jerks. Truly take a step back and think of how your actions are affecting your entire team, because we all just want to help each other, so don't be that person.
What you put in is what you get out. You're going to need somebody's help at some point, so go ahead and help somebody out because it's going to come back around eventually. Last part I want to touch on in the supervisor portion is, I think this is a really cool idea, and I don't know if any have been actually formally, not at any places I've worked at, but formally implemented, but establish a mentoring program for either, it could be new ATs. Honestly, it should be everyone, not just new ATs, because everyone needs help with this. Have a experienced AT with a less experienced AT, but also have like switch it up and have them maybe mentor for like 3 to 6 months and then switch it up. Maybe have that new person with an older person and 2 older people together, because everyone has different ideas and they might say, hey, so-and-so told me about this. This was really cool. It helped me. Katie told me to switch out of my clothes when I got home. I could go and tell a 20-year-old athletic trainer or 20-year veteran, I'm in year 8, and they could be like, oh, that's really cool. So now I have something to share because Katie shared it with me. And just having that kind of rotation of mentoring, I think, is a really cool idea, because supervisors are the gatekeepers for work-life balance, right? And you have to actively be looking and asking for feedback and actively been trying to improve it and implementing these strategies for it to work, because employees are there to be good employees, right? They're not there to so much advocate for their work-life balance. They're going to do what they can, but there's some things that are just institutional barriers. And so if you as a supervisor can say, okay, like we're going to have these mentorship programs and we're going to go around and I'm going to touch base with them and be like, hey, what have you guys come up with? Oh, here's an institutional barrier that we're seeing a lot. Can we address this? Maybe yes, maybe no, but at least we're having that conversation. And that, feeling heard as an employee really helps decrease that burnout and increase that work-life balance, because now like, okay, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I don't have to look for a new job to improve my work-life balance. And you're giving them an opportunity to advocate for their work-life balance rather than sitting there and just waiting for them to go out of their way and advocate for it, which for a lot of athletic trainers is seen as I'm creating conflict because I'm complaining about something in my work. And that's hard for a lot of ATs to go to their supervisor about. It really should be a top down, like the supervisors going to the, hey, how's everything going? Everything good? Anything we can improve? Because a lot of employees, I think, won't go up because they're like, well, my job is to do this. I don't want to complain and seem like I'm struggling with it. So I'm just going to focus on me. And then you kind of miss out on all the opportunities to make improvements. So Ashley, have you ever had a mentoring program? And then Katie, I'm curious if you have as well.
So when I was coming up through the ranks, I had like a non-official mentoring program, and that like I had older CIs and stuff and people that I knew I could reach out to for help if I needed. And for a long time, that was actually my boss, who was a PT. And like when I was working with her, like it was great, like having that person to talk to, the advice, the years of experience. That was always good. And so you need someone that you can go to for that. And now in the back end, now that I'm like further in my career, I try to make sure I'm always open for anyone to contact. And people do, they call me and like, I have this problem. What do you think? I have this injury. What do you think? Whatever it is. I love that there's like now a network of us who are there for each other, and we have a group chat, stuff like that. So, definitely I highly recommend suggesting that. And I hope and pray for all of you out there that you do have managers who are checking in on you and that you actually feel like you can say things to without getting in trouble. So,
and quick shout out to the EEP RMATA committee.
They
have a
Emerging
mentorship program, which
committee is phenomenal.
Yes,
they've been doing great work.
It's awesome. So that could be another mentor.
Legacy.
Yep.
Yes, Legacy Link, I think it is. So hop on that if you can, because that puts you in touch with a seasoned athletic trainer,
a middle,
what are the other two?
Like the middle range of years experience,
early emerging professional, and then
the student.
A student, yeah. And the early emerging professionals, I think up like 1 year to like 15 or 12 or something like that. It's or maybe 10.
I think
it's a long time, yeah. Because I know they put me as the early emerging professional. I'm like I'm almost a decade in. This is, but yeah, do that because it's really awesome to connect with ATs, not just in your local area, but much more broad.
Because it includes the region too. So you are in a group of people in different states, and they do things differently, and it's actually really cool to learn and see how other places are doing it. So highly recommended.
Yeah. Katie, have you done a mentorship program?
I was not lucky enough to participate in one. I did, on the other hand, take students as a preceptor for years, and of course, answer any and all questions they ever send me, and any coworker I think I've ever had can call me with questions. And if I just happen to drop you my cell phone number at any point and you have questions, call me, ask me, I don't care. I will be a soundboard for anybody who wants to be one. I did attempt to implement a mentorship program at one point with it was a team approach where we had PTs, ATs, other professionals in it. And very many people took that as a extra workload, and they wanted to be paid for their time to be in a mentorship program. And I was like, okay, we've lost sight of what mentorship is at this point, because
I mean, hey, I'm proud of their advocacy for their salary.
It was kind of one of those where I was like, okay, this was kind of the point of, you want to be a sports medicine professional and associate yourself as the team PT, the team PTA, the team whatever, but you don't want to spend the time to talk through how to handle specific injuries, or like how, this weird treatment came up in the past. How do we handle that? Like, we're not okay. And so it was a very interesting insight for me, where I thought, oh, this will be great to have the team of people who are going to be treating all of these athletes sit down together and have discussions regarding how to most appropriately care for specific injuries or whatever they chose to talk about in that. But again, it was interesting to me to find out that everyone kept talking about, well, where am I going to get the time to do this, because I'm not being paid for it. So it was an interesting perspective to have.
All right, so let's move into our third section. This is looking at, we are now no longer at work and we're at home. How do we disengage? So first point is you need to disengage. That's extremely important. We've talked about a couple strategies of how to do that: changing your clothes, putting on do not disturb. Phones have a really cool like modes and routines that, based on your location, they can allow certain things and not allow certain things, or based on time. So I always have mine where if it's like, I think it's at like 10 o'clock to 6 o'clock, or if I'm on PTO, I can just click the button and then nothing comes through. I'm not getting anything that I set it to be like, this is not coming through. This is not coming through. Basically, I just have it so my wife and my friends can come through. And then other than that, I'm like, everything else can wait. Because if I'm on PTO, I'm usually busy. So the important thing here is, when you're on personal time, it needs to be available and you need to honor it and like schedule it if you have to. But when you're on your personal time, you are on your personal time. Find that time to carve out and say, okay, I'm waking up, I'm having my coffee in the morning, I'm going to watch whatever, or I'm going to do whatever and hang out and have a good time. Yes, work might come into my mind, but as soon as it does, nope, get out of here. I'm not dealing with you until 11 o'clock when I go to the school. Right now, which is kind of one of the points we wanted to do this episode now, because I'm doing inventory, I'm thinking about coaches meetings, I'm thinking about EAPs, and I'm having a really hard time when I'm working to focus on one task. I'm doing inventory. I'm like, I got to update my EAP. I'm like, no, focus. And I do that in my free time too. I'm like sitting there relaxing, having my coffee, knowing I'm going to have like 6 hours to get like work on this stuff today. But my brain's like, hey, we should probably start doing that now. Hey, let's start working on those EAPs, buddy. I'm like, no, I have time later today scheduled to do this. And it's helped me kind of set that boundary, but it's not easy. My brain still is like, hey, you got to get working. Ashley, are you the same way with that?
Yeah, I am. And I've learned, for your personal time, you actually have to schedule it, and you have to get good at making it happen. It's not just going to happen organically, because you're going to get home from work and you're going to be tired. You're not going to want to do anything. So small things like meal prepping, scheduling your personal recovery time, whether that's scheduling massages or like yoga classes, something more chills. Do schedule in your all of your items, especially during your busy seasons. Make sure you're taking time, and then make sure you create a non-athletic related hobby. So crafting, hiking, like, I know hiking's not super non-athletic, but book club, cooking classes, like whatever it is, something different. Your life needs something different other than athletics. And so really, and you have to do it intentionally. It's not just going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yes. One thing that, Katie, you've been pretty big on, I know we're working as a committee with CETA, is create support networks, which, again, like Ashley said, it's gonna feel like work initially. You're gonna have to schedule it. You're gonna get off of work and be like, I don't want to go meet everyone and hang out. I just want to go like relax. I'm overworked. I'm tired. But you get there, you complain for 30 minutes, you get it out of your system, and then you have a great time for another 45 minutes to an hour. And then you're like, all right, this was fun, I'm going home. Or you complain for 30 minutes, hang out for 30, go home. There's always that barrier when you're about to go to a social event where you're like, it'd be so much easier to stay home and relax. The problem with that is I can't remember where I read this, but it kind of like cascades on itself, where if you don't get out, each time it gets harder to get out because you're more like, I just want to stay home. Kind of, I always liken it to exercise. It's hard to start exercising, but once you do it, you're like, okay, I feel good that I just did that. And I'm like, my cup is refilled. And that's how I feel whenever I get together with colleagues. I'm like, initially, I'm like, oh man, like I'm spending more time with work people. But then afterwards, I'm like, man, that was so awesome. I can't wait to do that again. Refilled my cup. And then each time I do it, I start looking forward to it more. And I'm okay carving out time to meet with colleagues because it's fun and it refills my cup and it decreases that burnout. So it doesn't have to be work related. It could be friends related. Like find time to carve out, even if you're like, man, I just worked a 50, 60-hour week. That was rough. I really don't want to go hang out with my friend when we had plans because I just want to like sit on the couch and veg. Sometimes that's okay. Other times, go meet your friend. That can help refill you and re-energize you. And it's important to keep those things up because if your life just starts to erode into work, sitting on couch, work, sitting on couch, all you're going to be doing is thinking about work because that's all you do when you're not at work. And it's going to increase that burnout and make it really hard for you to get out of that hole. So have those support networks. I think that's very, very important.
And we do that on vacation, like my family, like because we all have the same problem. Welcome to the millennial generation, I guess. But like, I'll look at my sister and be like, "Hey, why you got your computer? What's happening right now? What's happening?" That's a work thing. You're not allowed to be doing work, but it like keeps you honest about not doing work when you're on your vacation. And that's part of our support system is, oh, are you supposed to be working right now? Because I'm pretty sure you're not being paid to be working right now. Don't take your computer with you. Don't do that. People do it all the time. I'm shocked by it. Turn off your email, turn off those notifications so you don't get them because you don't need to think about it. The world will continue spinning. Let it in your absence. You took the time off for a reason. Use the time off.
Absolutely. All right. So anything else that you guys want to kind of dive into? Those were all the big points that I really had. Yeah, Ashley, go ahead.
Yeah, no, just I think I've mentioned this before on this podcast, but I read a book and it's called The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins, and I just so highly recommend it. It really talks about not when letting things go that you can't control. Oh, you have a coach who's kind of rude and treats you kind of not great all the time. I'm trying not to say bad words. Can you actually can anything you do change that? No. Well, let it go and just ignore it. And that has been a huge game changer for my personal mental health.
Speaking of mental health, I think everyone should go to therapy because it's just good for everyone. But one of the things that came up in therapy when I was talking about some communication things, my therapist was like, do you think that's like a you problem or are they handling it poorly? And I was like, like the light switch turned. I was like, they're not handling it adequately. She's like, yeah, that's not a adult professional or like, it's not an appropriate response. And that's a them issue. And I found myself going back to that time and time and time again, where I say something like, let's say, hey, your child got a concussion. Here's the concussion protocol. They fly off the handle. They're upset. Early in my career, I would have been like, I didn't communicate this correctly. This is a me problem. I couldn't fit. But now I'm like, okay, like they didn't handle that news well. Not necessarily on me. I feel like I conveyed it perfectly. Like nothing else I could have done. They didn't take it well. That's a them problem. And that's really helped to kind of reframe it, like to let it go. Like, hey, coach yelled at me at the sideline because I didn't have the capacity to look at 2 head injuries at once. And for some reason they thought I should. That's a them issue. Not my fault. I'm going to do what I can do. I'm going to look at the more pressing head injury first, and then I'm going to go to the other head injury and we're going to manage it. If the coach is upset with that, that's more of a him issue of not being able to handle that in that moment and understanding his or her emotions are high and they might not have handled it best in that moment. We all have those moments where we look internally and we say, I didn't do that the way I feel like I could have done it the best to my ability. But then when we look at other people and we see the coach who yelled at you in the middle of a game, we don't put that internal dialogue to them, but we put it to ourselves. And so that coach probably goes and be like, oh man, I shouldn't have yelled at Katie today. I feel bad about how I handled that. And they might not ever like articulate that because some people don't articulate it. It might move on. It might be an unspoken like, hey, Katie, sorry about that. That's my bad. But they're probably having that internal communication too of, I could have handled that better. So from your point of view, understanding, okay, they're in a high stress situation or they just got bad news and they didn't handle it quite the right way or quite how they would want it to. That's okay. Let them have their moment. Let them feel their emotions and understand like it's more of them processing than a you problem. So I think actually that kind of reminded me of that. I'm like that. It's been a huge mentality shift for me in the past year of letting it go and understanding that they're going through stuff too. And they might be reacting inappropriate to it. And that's okay. Let them, as long as it's not like obviously unprofessional and dangerous. Like put that caveat
and remember, people are all in a different emotional state a lot of times when you talk to them. Again, if you can catch them in a scheduled meeting time to communicate things, you're going to go a lot further, because in the middle of a big game and their best player just went down, your coach is not thinking of, oh, I should be nice to Katie right now. They're thinking, I have 15 new scenarios I have to run through right now because my quarterback's out for whatever reason, right? Same thing with a parent. You might have just called them, and this is the worst thing that has ever happened to them since they had a kid. You can't expect them to respond calmly sometimes, to be honest. That parent might not know how to respond or have the capacity to respond appropriately. So know that you're dealing with heightened emotions in some of these scenarios.
And we all are taught that, right? We know there's going to be these things. And I think part of the unfortunate side of this is you have to live through it to figure out how to handle it, which it's well documented. We have not really an issue, but I guess an issue of we don't have a lot of like long tenured athletic trainers, right? As you get to that like 15 year, we start to see a decrease in how many are staying in the profession. And I think part of that is, are we adequately prepared to handle these things? And are we thinking about this? Is it in the forefront? As a manager, are you helping your new ATs with this? Are you helping your early emerging professional ATs who are up to year 10 or whatever? Are you helping them through this? Because I'm year 7, year 8, and I just started figuring out how to handle this. And when you have something happen, if you have any little bit of anxiety or any like, if your brain latches onto things, you're going to hold it into your personal life and you're going to take it home, and you can't disengage like we talked about before. So if you had a coach who got upset with you because in the moment, blah, 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 not your fault. It is what it is. But you hold on to that and you're like, man, did I do something wrong? And you start circling it. And you're like, man, and you're thinking about it when you're at home and you can't read your book because your brain keeps on going to this one interaction. I've been there. I had like trouble falling asleep because of these interactions where the next day they intended to apologize to me the next day. I never once was like, oh, maybe they were like, I shouldn't handle that poor. Like I was like, oh man, they're going to be mad at me the next day. Right. So figuring out how to change your frame of mind and look at it from their point of view, and even have that conversation after the game, not right after the game, when all the kids are getting their stuff and going, and be like, hey, like, wanted to touch base. Good. Like, you guys need anything? And then that's usually when that conversation can come and be like, hey, sorry about that, by the way. And then you're like, all right, cool. That's done and dusted. I can go home and I can actually turn my brain off from it. But having that interaction, having that be the last thing you say to them, you can take that home very, very easily. And it can just be a misunderstanding. So communicate, not always easy, but try not to take things home. Figure out strategies everyone's different, right? Like what bothers me isn't going to bother Katie and isn't going to bother Ashley. So find out what makes you anxious, what you take home mentally, what that cognitive load is, and figure out ways to start addressing that. Ashley, you had something to add there?
Yeah, just like you were saying, give people some forgiveness and grace.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all dealing with horrible things in our lives. So be forgiving, be understanding, but still kind of hold that boundary of like, there's a difference between just constantly forgiving someone's behavior and attitude and being treated like terribly. So make sure you can recognize that line and address it when it needs to be addressed.
Yes. And I'll finish out the episode by saying burnout is not an acute condition, right? This is something that is manifest because of chronic stress. Emotional exhaust is a indicator. So familiarize yourself with burnout indicators and understand this is not I just had a really rough week. I'm burnt out. Like, no, this is something that's going to start and it's going to be subtle, and then it's going to gradually increase and increase and increase to the point where you have zero work-life balance. You're burnt out. You cannot like recover. And the only solution is to change careers, change jobs, shut down completely. So keep an eye out for it. Understand that this is a gradual process, that you could be anywhere on the sliding scale of it, but be aware that it is a sliding scale. You hear about the burnout of people just like shutting down. I'm pretty sure everyone at some point this year is going to be on that sliding scale of burnout. The goal is to figure out when you're on it and then figure out how to adjust it. And usually that comes with increasing your work-life balance, because that's, like I said at the beginning of the episode, they are intricately tied together. So decrease your burnout, you can improve your work-life balance. Improving your work-life balance, you can decrease your burnout. So that is all for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening to our CEU episode on work-life balance. We are the CETA Secondary School Podcast. Thank you again to Ashley and Katie. Every time we have you guys on, it's awesome to chat and get your perspectives. I think it's really, really helpful. We would also like all of your perspectives. So please feel free to send us a message, give us some feedback, let us know what you want to hear about. That feedback helps us make the shows better for you guys and talk about topics that are relevant for you. New episodes are released every other Friday-ish, so be sure to check back for the next one. Until next time, thank you so much for listening and take care.